Hey guys, happy Monday. So we are starting into the full moon readathon. I was initially supposed to start this last night, but honestly, I was trying to finish out my final book support group 48-hour readathon vlog. So that didn't happen. Yeah, I'm doing a lot of vlogs this month. I don't know why I thought that was a good idea, but here we are. Hopefully you don't get tired of all my B-roll. I'll try and make it interesting. Anyway, hi guys. So like I said, it's Monday. I had work today. It was fine. So in terms of the readathon, I actually made a little, where are you? There we go. I made a little spread for myself. So this is the TBR card. Right now, I have started into two of these books. So the first one for The Bat, which is a black on the cover, and I initially was gonna go with a different book. That was the second one in a series, and I didn't finish the first one. It's still sitting on my currently reading shelf staring at me, and instead I am actually going to be double counting this with one of my book club picks, which also works out because it is the pick for Jan's book club, A Cosmology of Monsters by Sean Hamill. I don't know why every time I read this I'm just like, Mark Hamill. Definitely not the same person. Anyway, this is a horror story that I believe is focusing on this family who can all see different monsters that exist in the real world, except the youngest son is the only person who starts to let them into his life. With that, I'm actually already, doesn't have a page number. Give me a page number. 91. I'm at page 91 of this. I have been listening to the audiobook a lot today. So I recently have gotten in the habit of taking Faith for a walk in the mornings before it gets too hot. And because of that, I've been cranking through a lot of audiobooks lately. So when we start out into this one, we are actually following the mother's perspective, but it's funky because it's like the son is the one telling us these events which occurred, but through the mother's eyes. It's weird. So his mother came from this like really rich family. While she was going to school, she actually started to flunk out, and her mom was like, yeah, you know, don't worry about getting a BA, get your MRS degree. Well, unfortunately for her mom, she ended up marrying a townie who was pretty poor, and he was obsessed with everything horror. There are lots of tie-ins to H.P. Lovecraft, many mentions of his different stories, so bear that in mind. I know some H.P. Lovecraft stuff from common pop culture, so we see the two of them whenever they meet, once they fall in love, and we kind of jump forward to them married with two daughters, the main character's older sisters, Eunice and Sydney. And right out of the gate, I just want to read the first line to y'all because it was like, what a way to start. I started collecting my older sister Eunice's suicide notes when I was 7 years old. Well, okay then. So this is definitely going to be a little fucked up. Like I mentioned, we have jumped now to where the parents are married. They currently have the two daughters, and the mother has just found out she is pregnant with, I think his name is Noah. And whenever he comes into the story is when he most often breaks the story to make his own comments that don't follow the current narrative. I'm also curious as to the layout of this book because it's not traditional chapters. There's like part one, the picture in the house. I guess technically these are considered chapters where it's like 1, 2. There's not like a full page break, which really throws me off. Directly before I hit this next part though, the formatting actually changed. The prior bits were like traditional style of a book, whereas the last little section was, I guess you could say this was like movie style, sort of. I'm not really sure, like, it looks like it's typed out on a typewriter and like there's no quotation marks. Instead, the dialogue is italicized. Yeah, funky. Obviously, I was listening to the audiobook, so I had to like flip back to check that out, but changed perspectives. We were in the mother's perspective, Margaret, and then for that little section, we changed to the oldest sister, Sydney. Made it so that it was a lot more confusing and you weren't really sure what was going on. Like it feels like a dream sequence or a nightmare, but it's also relaying actual events that we know must have happened. I honestly don't know how I'm feeling about this book. I was really enjoying it this morning, but when I was listening to it while driving back from work, I will admit I was kind of starting to hit the point where I was like, I don't like the turn this has taken. It's getting really depressing and I don't know if I'm in the mood for this. I might put it down. Then we had that shift and now I'm just like all intrigued again. So yeah, this is interesting. As for the other book that I started started on, like I mentioned, I also started on this one for the wolf, and that is Animal on the cover. For that one, I am going to be reading a arc. I have A Dreadful Splendor by B.R. Myers. When I say I've started this, I mean I marked it as currently reading on Goodreads, and that was it. Thankfully for me, in terms of like filming and editing, my schedule is pretty laid back right now, excluding like filming for specific other reading vlogs, which I think I only have like 1 or 2 books that will apply for on this TBR. Yeah, my TBR for this readathon, if you saw it, is very, very ambitious. I'm not gonna lie to myself and say that, yeah, I can do this all in a week. I can't. I'm just being hopeful with how my current layout for the week is going. Hopefully, I can get through at least a few of these. We'll see. So it's Tuesday, I am off work. I have just picked up dinner for me and my brother since I'm going over to his house tonight. We got Indian because I've been craving Indian food so much. I don't remember if I mentioned this in this video or a different video, but I have read 2 books recently with main characters who are Indian, and because of that, I've been craving Indian food so badly. So finally got some. I'm so excited. Work was fairly bland, pretty slow, but I have surpassed the halfway point into Cosmology of Monsters, and I am still weirdly enjoying this. It's strange. It's like something weird will happen that'll kind of make me start disliking the book, and then we'll shift and I promptly get sucked back in. There's been a few situations that are sexual in nature that I feel like have purely been utilized for shock value, and one of them I totally followed why it was happening in terms of like character. The other one just felt really fucking weird. I was listening to the audiobook this morning driving to work and shouted, "What?" whenever that event happened. It really caught me off guard. It came out of nowhere. We got another one of those like mini chapters from the perspective of the younger sister Eunice, where once again it was kind of done in a way where it's like very fast paced, things are moving really quickly. It's almost utilized as like a montage to jump us forward in time, because after the first one happened with the older sister, we then saw the main character, the son, Noah, was 6, and then the next time it happened, Noah was 16. So it's almost like a movie montage moment to jump the timeline forward. I think that's kind of interesting, but also in terms of pacing, it's very funky. Perspective, it's weird also, but I guess it fits with the fact that this is a horror book and it's trying to keep you off balance. We have seen the monster character a lot more now by this point. A werewolf, but also kind of magic. I'm not really sure what he's supposed to be. On the opposite side, I started into the ebook of A Dreadful Splendor last night, which is a historical mystery, I suppose. I do think there is a bit of a romance element as well. The only thing that I knew about this book going in, the main reason I requested it from Netgalley, was that this is a book about a woman who is a fake spiritualist. That just sounds fascinating to me. I think spirituality on the whole is really interesting, but a fake spiritualist, that's like 10 times as interesting, because she's a swindler. Like, she does this because she knows she can take advantage of people and get money, but she doesn't particularly like doing it. Our main character is Genevieve. She is basically just known for being able to read people incredibly well. That's why she is able to convince them that their loved one has spoken to her from the dead. But she also knows these little tips and tricks that kind of showcase that whatever she is doing is supernatural. However, she ends up getting caught within the first chapter, so I don't think that's really a spoiler, and is arrested. While she is waiting to be processed, she kind of uses her skills on a policeman, and this other person who is there for a different case sees her doing this and is so impressed with her that they end up bailing her out and offering that if she can help them with their master whose wife previously died, and hopefully try to help their master move past this grief, see that his wife who is passed is happy in the afterlife, then the man who propositioned her will act as her attorney. Well, of course, the lawyer's master is a lord, So she ends up staying at this very nice estate. I'm already really digging this in comparison to the other historical mystery I read earlier this year, A Botanist's Guide to Parties and Poisons. I think the overall atmosphere in this one is a lot stronger. So I definitely feel like I am set within the late 1800s, early 1900s London a lot more within this book. I don't know what it is, maybe between the word choice being utilized, fashion being brought up, the overall tone of the story, or just utilization of the setting. I'm not really sure. I guess it could be just a combination of all those things, but I just feel like it is done stronger here so far than in that previous book I mentioned. Anyway, so that is it for now. I'm gonna go because not only am I driving, but also I need to turn my AC back on because it is freaking hot and I am starting to sweat. Hey y'all, so starting out, today has been both very productive and very not. So my parents are actually going on vacation and I drove them to the airport today, and because of that I kind of had to take like a half day off work. Paired with that, I ended up going to the grocery store doing all of my shopping for while they're gone, or at least like a fair amount of shopping for while they're gone. And since I've been back, I've basically just been going through like cleaning all my produce, getting everything prepped for whenever I'm gonna need it, trying to keep it all fresh, and then at the same time kind of meal prepping some different snacks that are healthy that I've looked up. So one I saw that looks absolutely delicious is like sour gummy grapes, and basically it's super simple. It's just like you take cotton candy green grapes and cover them in limes, and then I saw a comment that said if you freeze them it makes them twice as good, and you know, that just sounds absolutely delicious. I was eating a few of them as I was like tossing them in the bag to freeze, and yeah, they actually do kind of taste like sour gummy candies. On top of that, I also made this like funky Greek yogurt sugary bark thing. You put Greek yogurt in a cookie tin and then you top it with like honey, your favorite fruit. I did some chocolates and then just put it in the freezer, like let it solidify, chop it up, and bam, you got like healthy dessert bark. Looks delicious. I'm very excited for it. Having already done all of that, now I'm gonna be lazy for dinner, and I think I'm just gonna make like this fancy TikTok ramen recipe I saw forever ago. I tried it once, it was delicious. I think I'm gonna kind of make my own spin on it a little bit more this time around. We'll see. Anyway, in terms of reading though, it has also been a very productive day. On one hand, unfortunately, I've decided to DNF A Cosmology of Monsters. I think I mentioned that I started enjoying this book a lot and then something weird would happen and I would consider like, maybe I should put it down, but something shocking would draw me back in. That entire situation happened 3 times, only for me to once again hit a really weird situation where I was just like, that's too much. I can't move past that. That just felt so like male fantasy mixed with horror, and I did not like it. It was really weird. Anyway, I ended up messaging Jan to ask if DNFs would still count as accomplishing that prompt, and she said yes. So, bam, technically speaking, I finished this book. I DNF'd at 205, I think. Yeah, page 205. I'm very intrigued to attend the live show for the book club on this one because I have thoughts and I want to know everybody else's thoughts. Because I DNF'd that one, I ended up starting the audiobook for A Dowry of Blood, which is completing the second prompt for the Bat character, which is to read a book with vampires. So A Dowry of Blood is actually one of Jan's favorite books, and then it is also obviously about vampires. It is kind of a Dracula retelling, but from the main perspective of one of Dracula's brides. I've heard so many positive things about it, and I've been really interested in picking it up for a while now, and this finally gave me that opportunity. I am actually listening to the audiobook of it, but I already wish I had just shelled out and bought a physical copy because this writing is absolutely beautiful. It is so gorgeous, so eloquent, so evocative. I like the contrast in tones that are taking place within this book. Fantastic, so gripping. It is told in a epistolary style where our main character, Constanta, is writing a letter to Dracula after he has died, and I love that sort of a setup. I love the callback to the
original Dracula. I'm really enjoying this. The writing is just so gorgeous. I genuinely think I would probably have a tab on every single page. It's not very long either. I've already hit the halfway point today. I was just blasting through this. I did not expect to get so sucked in by this main character. I think it's really impressive how well established all of these characters have been so far, given that we really aren't seeing that much of them. I mean, they're vampires. They live for centuries. We're basically getting just a time jump situation of all of the major events that Constanta thinks are relevant for the story. Also gets a little bit spicy. It's spicy in the way where like I'm kind of uncomfortable, but not because it's cringy. I'm uncomfortable regarding the situation around the relationship, if that makes sense. Basically, my thought there just boils down to the fact that this is talking about how toxic of a partner Dracula is and how abusive he can be. Definitely gaslights Constanta. He manipulates her emotions. He manipulates her love for him. He manipulates her interest in women as well, which leans into us meeting the next wife. I believe her name is Magdalena, I'm pretty sure. On one hand, I was initially picturing this Dracula as the Dracula from Castlevania. That Dracula would never. He loved Mina so deeply. He was willing to burn the world down for her, whereas this Dracula, I think, is just willing to burn the world down because he wants to. The other major piece of vampire media that this makes me think of is also Interview with the Vampire. Definitely kind of get a little bit of vibes of like Louis and Lestat kind of situation where like they're basically a couple. I mean, if you've seen the movie or read the book, I think you can see all of the homoerotic undertones, and Lestat is definitely a very toxic partner. Anyway, yeah, I'm really enjoying that one so far. I'm actually reading that one for another secret video which is coming out later this year, so I had to stop at the halfway point for filming my update, and because of that I was able to start into the audiobook for An Enchantment of Ravens. This one I believe is completing the second prompt for Wolf, a book that's a gift. Technically this isn't a gift to me, it was a gift to my friend Allie. I bought it for her, but I told her I was going to read it first. She is coming to visit at the end of this month, so obviously I have to get it read before she gets here. She's aware of this. She is okay with it. This is a fae fantasy. I believe it's a standalone, and we're following a girl who is a painter. She ends up having to do a portrait of this fae prince, but she showcases him with sadness in his eyes, which is a big no-no because fairies are not supposed to have human emotions, so he ends up coming back to take her to the fairy court to stand trial for this, and then along the way they end up getting into all of these troubles and having all these speed bumps, and I don't know how to feel about this. Fairies are not something I'm super into, but I've heard such positive things about Rogerson's writing that I was really interested in trying her stuff out. I still maintain that fairies aren't my thing. I don't see him as like sexy. I don't get why she has feelings for him at this point. It feels really underdeveloped. I can kind of liken this to The Wolf and the Woodsman, but I feel like since I've made that comparison in my brain, I just realize more and more the lack of connection these two have in comparison to 𝗖cie and Gaspar. I am really intrigued by the world. Like, I think it's interesting how she has showcased the fae as so true to like fairies from folklore. You know, they can't lie. They're actually not very beautiful. They just put up this glamour for people to see. They're really vain. They only really value humans for like what they can do for them. They try to trick them constantly. I enjoy that element of the story. I like the world building, but it's so weird because it's like we get certain aspects of world building and then there will be certain things that are plopped out like, oh yeah, that's totally obvious, and I'm just like, explanation please? In terms of our main character, Isabel is the name she goes by. She's a 17-year-old. She is this masterclass artist already. She is sought after by many a fae. She doesn't really have too much personality, if I'm being honest. Like, she's kind of feisty. Her parents died probably at the hands of a fae, so she has this weird relationship with them where like she relies on them to make a living, but at the same time like she understands you cannot trust them. She doesn't particularly like them, excluding this fae prince because, you know, oh, he's kind of different, like he's sort of hot also. And I'm sorry, that sounds so petty and rude, but like I'm not really getting it. If I weren't so far into this already, I probably would DNF it, but I'm already 140 pages and this is like 300 pages perfectly, so I honestly might just go ahead and push through. I was considering doing a Margaret Rogerson taste test video, but with how this one is going, I don't think that's gonna happen now, honestly. Maybe if this takes a really big turn at the second half, I'll change my mind about that. We'll see. Anyway, so that is it in terms of reading updates. Plans for the night. I am actually going to be doing some reading sprints with Catherine Zofri and Paige at the PM Reader. I'm really excited. Definitely hoping to work on my arc, A Dreadful Splendor. I think I've maybe gotten like a chapter farther into it, so nothing really has happened there. We've gotten a little bit of background about the Master's dead wife, and then also the main character's mother and how she got into the whole fake spiritualist trade. So my plan is to work on that tonight. Hopefully I can get a little bit further than 11%. We'll see. I'm not sure if I'm gonna have time to update tomorrow, if I'm being honest, because it is Josh and I's 6th anniversary. So we are gonna be going out to dinner, and then since I'm home alone anyway, he's gonna spend the night, so I don't feel so alone constantly. So I don't really know how much reading I'll get done then, but we'll see. Anyway, that is it for now. I'm gonna go take a shower and then make dinner because I'm getting hungry and I just feel kind of grody. Also, random thunderstorm appeared out of nowhere and it's so nice. Perfect night for it.
It's Friday. Yeah, I didn't film yesterday like I thought I wouldn't because it was my anniversary. Once I got home, I was just getting ready to go, and then Josh came over and it was like, oh, we gotta go to dinner. Once we got back, I was like, it's super late. We should get ready for bed. In terms of reading, yesterday I finished A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson, which was the second book that I needed to finish for the BAT prompt. Unsurprisingly, I really enjoyed A Dowry of Blood. It hooked me in the first half. It did not let me down in the second half. The writing continued to be absolutely phenomenal. Something I noticed at the end, the author literally never mentions Dracula by name. And I think that is so powerful given the perspective we're seeing the book through. It's almost as though Constanza has taken away his right to have a name in the story. She has literally taken that power from him. Wow, that is just so impactful and so awesome. The relationship between the three bride characters also was really impressive in terms of the dynamic they all had in roles that they played in their relationship with Dracula, in their relationship with one another, but also in their roles as Gothic archetypes. I definitely think this is a Gothic story. The third bride character was actually a man, and I think that was a very cool modernization to do within this story. He was also the youngest of them, and I could not help but kind of compare him to Claudia in Interview with the Vampire. Sort of had that similar thing where once he'd been turned, he was so invigorated by it, just had this awesome love for life, wanting to experience all these wonderful things, but eventually it starts wearing off and he is wanting for the things that made him human. Of course, Dracula is not pleased with that, and like I said, definitely could not help but think of that scene with Lestat and Claudia, where Claudia is furious at him because she will not age. Interview with the Vampire was kind of just consistently in my mind while reading this book. I'm so glad I enjoyed this. In terms of Enchantment of Ravens, I am this far in. I literally have probably 10 pages left, if that. I don't know how to explain my feelings about this book. I like it in theory, but I think in execution it just wasn't really my thing. Again, I like the idea of the fairy characters, but I just don't get them as like sexy beings to lust after. In terms of the actual relationship that the two have, I just felt like it wasn't really based on all that much. I mean, she literally starts to think she's in love with him from a few sittings of doing this painting of him. I feel like that's just a very limited scope of someone's personality and their life. Not only that, but then once we start moving forward and seeing the two of them interact more, like I could see the basis of it, but I don't know, if you're gonna summarize a lot of their interactions, then I really need to feel the romance whenever they do interact, and I didn't. There's also this point where she comments how she's so shocked that she's realized she's in love with him and he doesn't know this because it's apparently a sin in this world for them to love one another, but they had already basically confessed their love to one another 100 pages prior. How the hell would he not know? The world building also just continued to do that thing where it like would tell us something, but it wouldn't explain why, explain the reason behind it, it wouldn't explain the logic of it, it wouldn't explain how it came to be, anything. So I did not appreciate that in terms of world building in a fantasy story. I don't know. I guess I have come to enjoy world building a lot more than I used to. In the plot, like I do think it took an interesting twist. I just wanted more. Like that's my thing with fantasy romance, where I think I need a plot apart from just them
becoming a couple and like people not liking that they're a couple or something that has to do with them being a couple. That's what I read regular romance for. If I'm reading fantasy, I want there to be like a fantastical plot that is going on as well. There is, but like not a lot. Unfortunately, I just don't think this one was for me in the end, even though everything I had heard about it sounded like it would be for me. Nope. We also never figure out how old the love interest is, and given the fact our main character is 17, yeah, it's a little weird. On Wednesday night, while I was doing reading sprints with Catherine and Paige, I actually got to about the 30% mark in A Dreadful Splendor, and I am enjoying this. I do think we are starting to see a little bit more of like kind of a romance between our female main character Genevieve and the lord of the estate where she is working at. Basically, anytime they interact, he kind of just talks down his nose at her and is really rude, whereas she ends up having to bite back with some witty remark. I kind of love it, honestly, but I really am wondering what's gonna happen between the two of them for me to start seeing them in a romantic light. Not sure where it's gonna go. In terms of the mystery, I also like how this is developing. We have actually started to see occasional letters that were written by the Lord's wife prior to her death. With the letters, we're seeing kind of the history that's gone on around this estate, the history of the different relationships and the different people who all live there, which I definitely think is building some of that suspense because there's something that's going on that she constantly alludes to, but we have no idea what it is. It's some secret that they have at this house that the family knows, and I do think that some of the other cast members in the current timeline also know this mystery, but obviously Genevieve does not, so I'm very intrigued about where this is gonna go from there. We also found out that apparently the lady of the house's family actually had a history of mental illness issues, or at least that's what's believed is happening because they all have died under kind of suspicious circumstances. I haven't gotten too far into this, but I am really enjoying it. I'm hoping I can work through a bit more of it later today. We'll see. Plans for the night, I think, but I'm gonna make dinner. I'm also gonna prep some of my fave creamy tomato pasta, and I'm gonna go over to my grandma's tomorrow and take that with me for lunch. So that'll be really fun, and then I can share one of my favorite recipes with her. Hopefully, I will get some reading done. Seeing as how I have nearly finished An Enchantment of Ravens, which was the current audiobook I have running, and I still have not received Daughter of the Moon Goddess yet, so I don't have an audiobook for the hour-long drive it's gonna take to my grandma's house and back. Meaning, I gotta figure out a random book to pick up. Part of me is like, you should definitely read a book for an upcoming video and just take advantage of this fact. Other part of me is like, no, I want a mood read. I've really been wanting to continue the Winston Brothers series by Penny Reed, so I might pick up the second book. We'll see.
Hey friends, so it's Monday. I basically completely forgot to film a update on Saturday or Sunday. Here I am closing out this video day it is going out. So this is gonna be fun. Anyway, in terms of reading stuff, I think last I had talked to you guys, I was at like the 40% mark in A Dreadful Splendor. Well, last night I got to about 50%, and I am really enjoying this. I'm finally starting to kind of see where the like romance element is coming in. The Lord and Ginny have now had more alone time together. They're kind of starting to conspire about this whole trying to catch who he believes murdered his bride. With that, I do enjoy them. Like, he's kind of started to relax a little bit. It's as though he's finally starting to see her for the individual she is and isn't just thinking of her as this charlatan. And then on her side, she's finally starting to see a little bit of personality from him, apart from the fact that like he's a lord and kind of has a stick up his ass. In terms of the mystery, holy crap, y'all, there was a surprise twist that like we still don't technically know if that was full out truth. It's a idea, and the person saying they believe this does have some validity behind them, but that twist literally made me shout out a few choice expletives of shock, and I really caught Josh off guard. We basically spent all of Sunday being super lazy. So I went back and forth between reading and playing Pokemon Sapphire, which I don't think I mentioned for our anniversary. Josh got me every single rendition of Gen 3 Pokemon. Since my Emeralds that I had from when I was a kid actually has the battery on the inside dead, I ended up restarting my Nuzlocke on the Sapphire that he bought me. That's kind of been my priority lately. Apart from that, I also started into the audiobook for Grin and Beard It by Penny Reed, which is the second book in the Winston Brothers series. I decided to do that and I'm loving it already. Our female main character, 𝗖cie, is a Mexican plus size actress who is freaking hilarious. Like, I appreciate the fact that not only are we told she's a comedy actor, but the entire writing around her is so freaking funny. She's consistently cracking jokes. And yes, some of them do kind of fall flat, but a lot of them are really hilarious. I've been laughing at this book so much, though I do think I laughed a lot at the first book as well, so that could just be Penny Reed's writing style. Cletus also provides a great deal of comedy. He is one of the Winston brothers. I think the next book is actually his, but this one is focusing on Jethro, who is the oldest of the Winston boys. He was actually a part of his father's gang for a little bit when he was a teenager and has since sort of turned his life around. He is a park ranger. He has been celibate for 5 years, which leads to lots of wonderful tension and spice. I really enjoy Jethro as well. I was a little apprehensive going into this one because we actually don't see that much of him in the first book, whereas we see a lot more of all the other siblings. But Jethro definitely is still winning me over. Sweet Southern gentleman. I really like that he is a big charmer. He's really charismatic, even if like 9 times out of 10 he doesn't follow through with anything because he's been celibate for 5 years. But really, 𝗖cie is the highlight of this freaking book for me. She is so funny. She's so sweet. She has a fantastic idea of who she is as a person, what she stands for in her industry. The way she pops off and the things she says is always very similar to what I would think. This was going kind of slow burn at the beginning, honestly. Jethro didn't really know if anything was going to come of this, and then of course we get the whole celebrity element, which causes for some uncomfortable moments given the fact that 𝗖cie hasn't really ever dated a normal person since she's become famous. She usually is dating other celebrities, and Jethro literally like hides out in the woods. He didn't know who she was at the beginning, and she found that really refreshing, and I don't know, it's just like the perfect kind of setup for a celebrity romance book. I wasn't sure how I was going to enjoy that angle of the story because I don't think I've really ever read a romance book with this trope before. I've read plenty of fan fiction with it, but never a book. And I actually think it's being handled well so far. It adds some drama to the story. It definitely puts some stakes in the plot, but it's not like such a hindrance or consistently brought up in a way that it causes unnecessary drama. I really was hoping that this book would take place in the fall time so that I could say it would count for the second prompt for the witch character, but it does not. And now it doesn't really matter because I didn't finish that book anyway. So all in all, I think I got 1 character done. I got the bat. Yeah, I knew I went into this with way too high expectations for myself, so I'm not terribly surprised, but I did get 1 book finished for the wolf as well. Yeah, I finished out Enchantment of Ravens. So that is it for now. Thank you so much for coming to my channel today, guys. I really appreciate it. Make sure to hit like and subscribe down below. I have all my socials linked in the description if you're interested in keeping up with what I am reading. I come out with videos on Monday and Friday, but until then, I hope you continue to have a terrific day. Love you, bye!